During the studio system era of Hollywood, movie stars often changed their names for a number of different reasons. Often their professional names were chosen for them by the studio brass. Basically, if you wanted to be rich and famous, you had to do exactly what the execs over at the studio told you to do. Fortunately, these days, film stars have the freedom to either keep their birth name or choose for themselves what stage name they want to use. In this video, we'll take a look at several old Hollywood celebrities who changed their name for fame. Cary Grant. Back in his vaudeville days, Grant went by his birth name Archibald Alexander Leach, but once he was getting his foot into the Hollywood door, studio execs thought the name was unsuitable for a leading man, and suggested he should have a name that sounded more like Gary Cooper. While Gary Cooper had a ring to it, the North by Northwest star preferred the sound of the name Cary Grant instead. He legally changed it in 1941. Natalie Wood. Wood's parents embraced their Russian roots when they named her Natasha Nikolaevna Zakharenko. When she was filming Tomorrow is Forever at age 6, the film's producer, Bill Getz, popped up on set and told her name was being changed for its marquee value. She continued to act under the name he selected, Natalie Wood, but she never legally changed it. Kirk Douglas. Born Isser Danielovich on December 9, 1918, Douglas was the son of Brina and Herschel Danielovich. His parents had emigrated from modern-day Belarus. At home, their family spoke Yiddish, and he grew up being called Izzy Dembski, after the name his uncle had chosen after he resettled in America. Before entering the U.S. Navy during the Second World War, the actor legally changed his name to Kirk Douglas. When getting his start as an actor, it just made sense for him to keep using his new Americanized name. Kirk made his film debut in 1946's The Strange Love of Martha Ivers. He went on to appear in more than 90 films and was known for his good looks and explosive acting style. Michael Caine. Born Maurice Micklewhite, this actor felt compelled to change his name after seeing the marquee for Humphrey Bogart's 1954 military drama The Caine Mutiny. Rita Hayworth. Best known for her performance opposite Glenn Ford in 1946's film noir classic Gilda, this highly celebrated golden age of Hollywood star was originally named Margarita Carmen Cancino. Her father, actor and dancer Eduardo Cancino, was of Romani descent, while her mother, vaudevillian Volga Hayworth, was of English and Irish ancestry. When Rita was 12, she partnered with her father in an act called The Dancing Cancinos. For the act, her hair was dyed from brown to black to give her a more Latin appearance. When she was 16, she took a bit part in the 1935 film In Caliente. While dancing with her father at the Caliente Club, she was noticed by Winfield Sheehan, the head of Fox. After calling her in for a screen test a week later, Rita was signed for a short-term 6-month contract with the studio. At that time, she changed her name to Rita Cancino. At first, she was mainly cast in exotic roles, such as an Argentinian girl in 1935's Under the Pampas Moon, and later as an Egyptian girl in Charlie Chan in Egypt. After her contract ended with Fox, Rita appeared in the Columbia Pictures film Meet Nero Wolfe. Columbia studio head Harry Caine was so impressed he signed her to a 7-year contract. Caine argued her image was too Mediterranean, which limited her to being typecast in exotic roles. He further thought her name sounded too Spanish. Not only did Rita take Caine's advice by changing her name, but she changed her hair color to dark red and raised her hairline by undergoing a procedure called electrolysis as well. After Americanizing herself as best she could, Hayworth's career took off almost instantaneously. She appeared in over 80 films and is generally recognized as being one of the most iconic movie stars of her day. Before we tell you more, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to FactsVerse if you haven't already. Rock Hudson. You have to admit, Roy Harold Scherer Jr. isn't nearly as catchy of a name as Rock Hudson. Hudson got his stage name after he sent a talent scout, Henry Wilson, a headshot in 1947. Wilson took him on as a client and had him change his name. Later in life, Hudson admitted he always hated the name. Joan Crawford. After signing with MGM in 1925, Crawford became one of Hollywood's most prominent film stars and one of the highest-paid women in America. But success didn't come easy. Crawford was born into poverty in San Antonio, Texas, sometime between 1904 and 1908. While her father abandoned her family when she was a 10-month-old, Joan managed to work her way out of rags and into riches by first appearing on Broadway as a chorus girl. She was initially named Lucille Fay LeSueur, but after being spotted by studio bosses at MGM, they insisted she change her name if she wanted to have a career in the movies. They thought her name sounded too European, but they also felt it too closely resembled the word sewer. Her professional name was ultimately chosen after the studio ran a magazine competition asking readers to help select a new one. Doris Day. Doris Kappelhoff changed her name to Doris Day while auditioning for radio performances early on in her career. Bea Arthur. This Golden Girls actress didn't change up her name that radically. She was born Bernice Frankel, but she always preferred to be called Bea. She chose to go with Beatrice since she thought it would look nice on a theater marquee. The Arthur part of her last name came from her first husband, Robert Allen Arthur, whom she married in 1944. Marilyn Monroe. Born Norma Jean Mortensen in 1926, this actress, model, and singer was one of the most famous sex symbols of the mid to late 50s and 60s. Monroe decided to change her name early on because she felt like her birth name was, as she put it, unwanted and made her feel like a little servant girl. It took her about a decade to have her name legally changed. She was going by Marilyn Monroe for about a decade before it was official. Before she transitioned to the blonde bombshell mega celebrity she became, she was also a natural brunette. She dyed her hair the signature shade of platinum blonde to boost her career. While it might seem like a trivial move, the change-up almost immediately gave her the leg up she'd hoped for. Audrey Hepburn. Before she was the star of Breakfast at Tiffany's, Hepburn's name was originally Audrey Kathleen Rustin. Throughout World War II, Audrey and her family endured many hardships while living in Nazi-occupied Holland. But despite this, she still managed to attend ballet lessons. During this time, her mother, fearing for her safety, changed her name to Etta Van Heemstra to shroud her British heritage. When Audrey began her film career, she reverted back to going by Audrey and adopted half of her father's surname, Hepburn Rustin. Judy Garland. Garland was born Frances Ethel Gumm, but she and her sisters, who performed as a trio, chose to change their stage name from Gumm Sisters to the Garland Sisters in 1934. It's been suggested they changed their name after a comedian suggested that they switch to a last name that sounded more theatrical. Alternatively, it's been said the name came from songwriter George Jessel, who said that the girls looked prettier than a garland of flowers. Now it's time to hear from you. Which one of these people was most surprising to hear about? Let us know in the comment section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.